Welcome to another Guitar Night Live. This is episode 20. I'm Daniel Jacobson at Ultimate School of Music in Dublin, Ireland. And my guest tonight is a virtuoso guitar player, a singer, and composer. She won Guitar Player magazine's Guitar Superstar Award a few years ago. She's a master of the acoustic guitar. I'm really glad to introduce you guys. I have to remove the pin. Vicki Genfan, thanks so much for joining us. Hello, Vicki.
Hi, thank you for having me, Daniel. Really glad to be here. Wish I was in the beautiful country of Ireland right now.
Hope we
Um,
can make it again when we're traveling.
I hope so. I've told Daniel I was there once and very touched by the beauty. I was in Dublin for about 2 minutes, and I was up at the Causeway, which was just really beautiful and mesmerizing, really. So,
Well, hopefully that guitar festival gets you back next time it's
yes,
on. If it's
yes.
on. Well, Vicky, let's start off by finding out about how you got into playing guitar in the first place, and especially how you got into fingerstyle and all the different acoustic, percussive fingerstyle techniques that you do.
Yeah. So, do we have some acoustic players here today? Give me a
Mostly,
thumbs up if you play acoustic guitar. Yeah. And how many of you play electric? Okay. Okay. Um, I started playing really young. I was 5, and my dad was a musician and a singer, and he'd sit down and play with us, and it was always something fun. So when my hands were big enough, I picked up a guitar and started like most of us, learn the basics, learn some chords, whatever I could do at the time. And I just kept learning from my dad and learning from friends. And so from age 5 to 10, 11, I was playing basic folk music, really. I liked finger picking from an early age. I really, really enjoyed that. Didn't really know classical, but I just like kind of folky finger picking, really. I love this movement of my hands. Uh, then I heard players like well, I was a James Taylor fan, also Michael Jackson fan, also like so I had this folky thing, but also really loved R&B and some dance music. But it changed my world really when I heard Joni Mitchell. How many of you know Joni Mitchell's music? If you're super young, maybe you never heard of her. Um, but she's an iconic guitarist, singer, and songwriter from the 60s, way back. And Joni was her own woman outside the box. She did things her own way. She was uh, exploratory, and she ended up learning a couple of what's called open tunings from some of her friends. And she started to create her own guitar tunings. And what I mean by that is that she would literally change the way the guitar is tuned. So I'll show you an example. Um, this is one of the tunings that I love to play, and it's a chord. It's a C minor chord. So very different than standard tuning. Yeah, has a different sound. And when I heard Joni Mitchell's songs and her guitars, my head popped. I thought, what is this sound? What is that sound? I love it. It's a little bit like piano chords. It was just to me a different way of playing guitar that was very moving. And I thought, I'm not going to try to do what Joni Mitchell does because she does it better. I can't compare, but I like this idea. And I started to tune.
Where was where did you hear Joni's music the first time? Did you on record?
Oh, record somewhere. I have no idea. I don't know. Really, I have no idea.
And
But
did you get to see her performing live?
no, I
No,
did not. Wish I had. Had you seen her, Daniel?
never live. No,
No.
I no,
Yeah. Yeah.
unfortunately, but like videos and
Sure. There's tons of live videos.
The tuning thing is really interesting. I didn't know it until more recently in the last couple of years that she used those open tunings, and because her fingers were weak from having polio.
Well, I've done a lot of research on Joni Mitchell because I did a presentation on her
Yeah,
last year, and that was part of the story.
right.
But she'll do full bar chords,
Interesting.
which is no polio joke. If you
Yeah,
don't have strength, part of it was there were some easier ways you could play things,
yeah,
but part of it was that she called them chords of inquiry. She could find these interesting, different sounding chords that she just didn't know. She didn't know how to find those on in a standard tuning, but here they were in certain tunings. There were just these. They weren't major. They weren't minor. There's many chords that uh, make one up right now.
yeah.
It's
That's
not a
real
major chord.
brilliant.
It's not a minor chord. It's somewhere open. It's somewhere in between. And to Joni Mitchell, these were chords of inquiry. She said, my life at the time was so full of questions and confusions that these chords just made perfect sense because they were kind of hanging, you know? And this is part of how she thought about it. I didn't know what she thought. I didn't read anything about her. I just started tuning. And I kept changing my tunings on the guitar. And as I would come with different tunings, I would find different things, different chords, different ways to make cool sounds. I don't know, I'm making this up now. There's one I use a lot. You find that you can just play some bass notes and leave the open strings. Wow.
Yeah.
I'm only playing 3 notes. I'm not even changing the chords, but listen to how interesting to me, to my ear, this was really fun. And I learned quickly thereafter, I started to learn about the harmonics. How many of you know how to play the harmonics on the guitar? If you play the 12th fret, anybody know how to play the harmonics? So they're special tones. They're like, to me, they're like little bells.
Yeah.
And when you place your fingers right over the bar, on the 12th fret is the easiest way. They're overtones. And it's based on the physics of how a string vibrates, which I'm not going to go into. But you can get these beautiful ringing. And you can get them in other places. And I learned that I could use some of those harmonics in these chords. So my head began to just explore, find things, and I am a hand and finger tapper, I would say. Tapper. I think it's a little bit of an obsession where I like to tap things. And so I began to realize that this is a wooden drum, hollow inside, with lots of nice resonance. And then I realized that you could tap those harmonics for a sound that's a little bit like a hammer dulcimer. Yeah?
Yeah.
That beautiful sound. Harmonics are beautiful on their own, but when you tap, now you get the wood sound. So you get this kind of a sound, it's a very different sound. So these are the things that came to me just because I was noodling, just because I was sitting as a young child at 15, 13, 14 in my bathroom where the echo was nice and big, and finding the tunings and finding the tappings and where what chords could work. And at the same time, I was really getting into bands like Earth, Wind, and Fire. This funky, really funky R&B kind of thing. I loved it. A lot of Motown, and I thought I would love to be one of those slap bass players, you know? I really wanted to be a funky bass player that could just do the slapping stuff. And I picked up my brother's bass, and the strings were so thick and everything was so hard to do. I said, forget about it. I was frustrated. So picked back up the guitar, and I started to play around with what can I do on the guitar. And I just began to slap in my own way on the guitar.
That's
So
interesting. It's really fascinating. And a couple of questions come to mind. Did you discover these ways of playing and then later on hear other guitarists who were doing similar percussive fingerstyle stuff and go, hey, I
I,
can play like that?
I didn't hear anybody. So I'm ancient. And when I was doing this, it was it was 70s, 80s,
So later on,
80s.
way later on, it became really popular.
Yes. I didn't know anybody doing it. And somebody said to me once, at one point, hey, do you know Michael Hedges? So Michael Hedges is another iconic guitarist who you should check out. It just for the wonder of what he did and who he was. Um, he did things with the guitar that were in different tunings. He had harp guitars. He did a lot of percussion, but differently than I. And he got a real cult following. You know, there was a real below the surface. Michael Hedges was very well known in this circle, and many players have been influenced by him. Unfortunately, I never got to see Michael play live, and I don't try to do Michael's techniques because I can't, because he does them. But a lot of players will do. There's a he does a lot of this with the one hand is, you know, and I can't do this, and then other things like that. But and there's a lot of players that now are doing more melodic things with one hand here, more of the Eddie Van Halen kind of tapping. I can't do it. So
You discovered your own version style of this on your
yes,
own way
yes,
before anyone else. That's really interesting.
yes, and so things that come from these different techniques. I'll just play you the introduction to one of my songs, but it's a really nice example of thumb slapping, harmonic tapping, and the body percussion. Oh, I'm not in that tuning anymore. Well, then yeah, show you an example, a short example from a song called Newgrass. So thumb
Woohoo!
slapping, harmonic tapping. Any questions?
Yeah, if anybody has a question, just stick up your hand, or you can write it in the chat as well if you don't want to
Nadia.
speak. Nadia, do you want to unmute yourself?
Yeah. Hi, Vicki.
Hi.
It's really amazing that you do, and really inspiring. So, from your story, I recognize that it's kind of natural for you to develop all of these technique since you were a kid. But is there any way for someone who's quite new to guitar, and especially to the thing that you were doing, to learn that kind of technique? So that's question number one. And question number two is, if there's ever a tablature or a music sheet of a percussion type of guitar, how do you read them? Or if there is a way to translate those sound into a tablature?
Yes. Okay, so first question is, yes, there are many, many, many teachers in this world today, thanks to YouTube primarily. I teach. I teach privately, so I teach people at many different levels, and I also have one video in particular that goes into these techniques in little tiny pieces, and it's called 3D acoustic guitar. I can give you a link later on, Daniel, to the video section of my website. So that video is very, very good to take all of the techniques that I use and break them into little tiny pieces. So I love the video idea that you can go over it and over it and over it. And then if you want a lesson or two in person to say, hey, how am I doing? We can do that. I teach over Zoom and also on TrueFire, which has their own platform. In terms of tablature, yes. And because this style of music is growing and growing and growing, there are many artists who have written out their songs. But I have to tell you this, there is not going to necessarily be 100% consistency. So, what I may call a thumb slap, Andy McKee may call it something else. And in a piece of his music, he may write it out as a different symbol. What I have found, and I hope it continues, is that every time an artist writes out a piece using these different techniques, sometimes they're called extended techniques, that they will have a key at the top of their chart that says TS means thumb slap. A note in the shape of a diamond means a harmonic, etc., etc., etc. So most serious players, when they are writing out their music, they will have a key so that you can read it. There's also a body of work, Michael Hedges, who I mentioned before, and I'm going to run blank on his name, but there's a gentleman who took on the task. Michael Hedges died in a car accident 20 years ago. So he's no longer with us, but there's a gentleman who transcribed all of his music. And he created a system for notating Michael's playing. So if you go from player to player, you're likely to find some things are similar, but some things are unique to that player, or this particular person has decided to call this thing something different. So it's a little bit hard work to get through that, but I hope that answers the question. Good.
Great question and great answers.
Great.
Follow-on question I was thinking before, when you're getting into alternate tunings, did you work by ear all the time, or did you later on work out what the notes were and what the chords were, and kind of did you add that at any point, or is that not even necessary to know this is C minor, whatever?
Good question. I was lucky enough to study music early on. So when I was 3 years old, I was learning piano, and I had experience reading some notes, and the idea that you write out notes and you read them. So that was a great introduction for me. I then I guess, fourth grade in our schools, we started playing in the band, and they didn't have guitar at that point. I played trombone. So from fourth grade through high school, I played trombone, and so I got good experience reading in the bass clef. All throughout this time, I played guitar by ear. I never had lessons on guitar. Guitar was special for me. It was where I could be super creative. I didn't have rules. I didn't think about, oh, am I playing a G scale? Do I know my chromatic scales? How's my fingers? Are they staying in the right place yet? Didn't think about it. I just let myself have guitar as my escape or my just creative outlet. So for this, I'm very grateful. And I got to a point where I wanted to go to university as a guitar major. And then I had to do an audition. And I really didn't know any songs but the ones I wrote that were in these strange tunings. So I got a teacher for the first time. And I would tell you that up until that point, I was not really playing with other musicians much. I was mostly playing by myself, accompanying myself, writing music, singing songs. So it was not a big need for me to figure out what is this note? What is this chord? What is this chord? Oh, am I in a mode? What am I doing? But I still had my theory. I was learning my theory all along. So I knew how to understand things like chords and scales and 1 chord, 2 chord, 3 chord, 4 chord. Great, important stuff if you want to share music with other people or if you want to write music. So I was learning all that. Got some lessons, auditioned, made it to school, and studied for 2 years and dropped out because I was too busy tuning in different tunings. I couldn't stand to study my homework. I couldn't do the jazz songs I was learning. I didn't like them. I didn't like having to play classical music. It wasn't exciting for me. So I was now, instead of sitting in the bathroom with the echo, I was sitting in the stairwell of my dormitory in college with a big echo. And at that point, I began to play in a band. And it became important for me to be able to explain to people what I'm doing. So I think at that point, I started to take it more seriously. Hey, let me figure it out. You know what? It's not that hard. If this string is normally an E, I know I can figure out, even if I put a tuner on, where I tuned it. I tuned it now down to a C. C, D. That's an E.
Yeah.
I know it because I know that half steps work like this. So C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F. I know that has no third in it because my ear has been practiced. I learned it. I know this. Ah, there's a third. If I flat it, I know I have a minor. Oh, and some really cool notes in there. Well, what are they? That's my root. Bum, bum, ba-dum. There's a 2, 1, 2. There's a second. What's that? Bum, ba-da-da-da-dum. Oh, it's a flat 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So, all these things I can tell you because I know my theory. So that's an F minor flat 6.
That's brilliant. That it's really interesting way of doing it. It's like you know the theory, but you might get some sounds by chance or accident and go, oh, I like that.
Yes. Yes. And I approach the guitar mostly with the right brain, which is not linear. It's not thinking about, oh, I would like a minor 6 chord here, F, because I just like that chord and I want to write a melody that starts on the 2, which is the G. No, I never think like that. But I might come up with that. Bum, bum, there's my starting note. Oh, I know that's a second. And it's really beautiful, but in fact, I should have done that, but I didn't. I don't think about it ahead of time, but I could. And having the knowledge of theory is just a wonderful gift. If you don't, and you just want to play for fun, don't worry about it.
Have you
You know,
ever
if, yeah,
have you ever come across someone who says, "I don't know theory. I play only by ear, and I don't want to know any theory because it will take away my creativity."
yes.
And what would you say to them?
What are your goals? What are your musical aspirations? What is your vision? If you just want to play by yourself, and I think really when it becomes important is when you bring in other people.
Yeah,
Um, because it's you can not know your theory, and you can say, here's a song I wrote, listen and tell me what I'm playing, or you listen and you figure out the bass part. So that's fine if that works for you in that situation. But maybe you're paying for studio time, and maybe you don't have time, you don't want to pay for somebody to figure it out, or maybe they have a bad ear and they really can't figure it out and they struggle, or they play the wrong notes. So there's something about being able to communicate. Hey, this is not only what I'm playing, here, listen to it, but I want you to understand it. It's based on an F minor 9 chord, F minor 6 chord. And if I even knew better about my scales and modes, I might be able to say to a saxophone player, I'll really like you to jam on this, let's say the melodic minor in F sharp, but don't use the G, because it will sound a little dissonant. You know, I don't know quite that much, but if I did, I would have even more ability to communicate what I'm hearing. And if that's important to you as a player or musician, a writer, then you need to learn your theory. If that's not where you want to go, don't worry about it. It really, really depends on what your vision is. What do you want to do? Where do you want to be? How do you want to express music?
that's a great answer. Really great. But would you do you think it could ever happen that if you understand the theory, it's not going to take away creativity from you, is it? It's not going to be like a negative thing if you knew if you were able to put the names on the chords or
You know what? I think there's a balance when you're learning. Um, I think that if you're only learning, we say book learning in English. I don't know if you have that phrase, but if
yeah,
you're if you're if you're only in American English anyway, if you're only book learning, then maybe you're going to get turned off. You know,
absolutely.
so you have to be aware. Um, I say to this day, if I'd had a different teacher for jazz guitar, I might have I might have moved forward with it, and I wish I did, because I wish I had that knowledge now.
Right.
But I wasn't sparked. I didn't have that excitement about the music the way we were learning it. And so just to plow through another song and learning the chord melody for this standard and that standard, it wasn't touching my heart, and I couldn't I was losing my joy. So in that situation, if I had known more or been wiser, I might have switched a teacher or something like this, or said, you know what, I have to work on different music. This is not getting that excitement in me. I'm losing it. Instead, I just left.
Yeah,
So in that case, a certain kind of study and a certain kind of learning um, kind of turned me off. But
that's a really interesting point. It's kind of makes me think back to when I was in jazz school learning jazz, and it was very much an exciting place. And the exciting thing was the atmosphere because of going to the gigs and seeing the teachers performing. It was more about the music that you were hearing, and then going into class and learning. It was just exciting. What are we going to do today? It wasn't
yeah,
about learning for the sake of learning. It was about getting to play the music.
yeah, it's a different approach, isn't it? So again, I can I if your vision is just for you to be doing this for fun, and you enjoy exploring things and you don't have a need to understand the theory behind it, I don't think that's a bad thing. You know, if you want to take it to somebody else and say, "Hey, play along with me," then you might want to have some of that language that you can speak. Um, it, it's different for everyone.
Tell me more about when you left school and then when you were in the band, did you start to like play a lot, perform a lot then?
Yeah, we were a strange band. Um, I loved it, but it was not typical. We were in Ithaca, New York, which is a beautiful upstate New York town, and Cornell University is on one hill, and Ithaca College is on the other hill, and in between is this little beautiful town, and college town. So lots of people, lots of college students, and lots of little uh, cellars and restaurants and pubs you could play in. But my band we did strange music. We weren't doing the popular music because I was writing in these open tunings, and my piano player partner, she and I would write together, and we had great fun, but we never made any big kind of commercial making money thing. But it was a beautiful partnership between four or five of us. And I left Ithaca, and 6 years later to move to New York City. And I thought, okay, I'll move to New York City and become a famous musician. That's what we think, right? And I was 23.
What was New York
And
like when you got there?
well, I had grown up in New York, so I was there as a little kid and left when I was 7. So now I came back and it was big and scary. And, I was in a little beautiful country town, and now I was in this big city, and it was terrifying. But I had to, I had to get a job. I had to make a living. So I, fa- I found a job in a recording studio nearby,
Brilliant.
doing tape copies, making copies of people's tapes. And my plan was to meet someone who would help me get famous. And so there were many record producers in there and interesting people, and I tried to make friends. And hey, here's my cassette tape. Will you listen to it? And da 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 da. And instead of getting uh, help to become an artist, or my own person playing music, I got a job with a record producer doing what's called contracting. And contracting is when you fill out the paperwork for a recording session for every person that was hired so that they can get paid. So it's an office job, has nothing to do with music, has nothing to do with playing, has nothing to do with the fact that I was writing music and singing and wanting somebody to make me famous. So that was a good lesson for me. Okay. Then I got a job as a bartender, which many of us do in this field. And that was much more in the right direction because after a few years, I realized that I could play music while I was bartending behind the bar. So I would do concerts every once in a while and bring my guitar and da 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 and have people play percussion with me. They would sit on the other side of the bar. And eventually, I left the bartending world because it was difficult to every day speak to drunk people. For me, it got to a point where I was no longer doing a good job at it. And plus, I didn't know any jokes. And you can't be a bartender if you don't know any jokes. But for 10 years, that sustained me, kept me in New York City. I met various people along the way and made some recordings here and there. And finally early on, I met the person that I then became my wife, who is a wonderful sound engineer. And she was working in recording studios in New York City, and I got to go in there and start recording, which became really exciting for me, and starting to meet musicians. And she really pushed me to develop my style further. and start to really perform live. So that became in my 30s more of a serious, see if you can stop bartending and just do music. Um, a long road, but many ways, many things happened. I met many people in the industry, partly because of Tay, my wife. She was already in the industry. It's a very, if, how many of you want to do music professionally? Good. I'm glad to see nobody. That's a very good thing because it's a hard, hard profession. Yeah, Daniel, isn't it?
Yes.
Luckily, I like to teach. My first student, my first job ever, I think, well, my first job was babysitting, and then my next job was teaching babies how to play guitar. My first guitar student was 5 years old, and I must have been 15 when I was teaching him. So I've been able to teach throughout the years. I've done other things as well. I've learned many things. I'm interested in the healing arts and energy work and sound healing. I have tuning forks I work with, um, many little paths and roads, and it, luckily I was able to perform and make my own little road into making a living doing music. It's very challenging, but yeah, I've met some amazing people along the way. Jennifer Batten, which is how I met Daniel, and Jennifer asked me to teach as part of the Guitar Cloud Symposium. So I've been working with her for the past year, and that's been a wonderful thing.
Oh, that's fantastic. Brilliant.
Yeah,
It's really, really good as
yeah.
well.
Thank you. So I mean, that's kind of a short thing of what I've done. In 2008, I entered the Guitar Player magazine Superstar competition. I read an advertisement that said, Guitar Player magazine is primarily a rock and metal magazine, electric guitar. But I read an article in Acoustic Guitar magazine talking about this competition, and at the very last line it says even acoustic guitar players can enter.
Even.
I thought, oh, well, I'm going to enter, and I can play the song I played on that competition. I can play it for you, but
Brilliant.
I entered. I got chosen to be one of the 10 finalists. They flew us all out to San Francisco, and we performed in front of a live audience. And the judges were Steve Vai, Joe Satriani, Elliot Easton from the Cars, George Lynch, and one more I can't remember. Anyway, I didn't know any of them. I didn't know one of these guys. And I won that competition. And first of all, a woman never won it, ever, since or before. And I think it might have been the first time an acoustic guitarist won the competition. So that was a great, for me, that was like, okay, somebody noticed what I was doing. I'm good. And it satisfied something in me that I had been working towards, which is recognition for what I was doing, being something different, and being good at it. And that was really nice for me. And I don't really have the need to enter contests anymore or try to be the best at something. And I'm just enjoying what I have, trying to make my songwriting better, trying to get my voice better always, but it was a really nice place to be recognized by those people for
Wow.
what I had built all these years.
That's a really great story. It's so great that they chose you to win. That's brilliant.
Yeah, that was sweet. It was really nice. I think some of the I, I have to say, who's the guitarist from the Police? Andy Summers.
Yeah.
He was the MC, and I think he was a little. I don't think he actually believed that I won. He was. He was the announcer, and he looked at this piece of paper they gave him, and then he kind of choked a little bit. He's like, his voice cracks when he says, and the winner is Vicki Genfan, and it was like, it was just a moment. I thought, oh, he doesn't get it. He
Brilliant.
didn't even really understand that I was a woman. I mean, the whole time he was saying, "Aren't these guys great? Look at all these guys." So it's an odd place. I'm glad to see so many women with us today. More and more women are making themselves publicly known as guitar players, but it has been a man's world, uh, especially the rock world. So it was really fun to do that.
Oh,
Yeah,
it'd be
shall I
brilliant to
shall I
hear.
play the song?
That would be amazing. Please play. And
I'm
just
completely out of practice, so forgive me already. So
if
first, I'm
you,
going to the tuning.
yeah, while you're tuning up, I will put in the chat link. I'll put the link to Vicky's PayPal and put it in again at the end, but you guys can use that to send Vicky a contribution for tonight. So, is it? Yeah, this is it. When you click that link, then you
Thank
click
you,
the button that says send, and then it asks you to log into your PayPal account. And then
thank you, Dan. Thank you, everyone.
you're very welcome. And we'll put a link into Vicky's website as well.
Have to let the dog out.
It's Bobo.
You've had enough, huh? Hi, baby.
Oh, we couldn't see him. Her.
I don't want you here. She doesn't want to hear me play that song again. So this low note is a B flat.
Wow.
And how much time do we have,
We've
Daniel?
got like 17 minutes left.
Okay. I'm going to tell you a quick story of how this tuning and this song came about, which is just a great reminder of how music can be so healing and so helpful in expressing how we feel. For me, the guitar has always been my best friend. And at a certain point in time, I realized that I was getting older, and a lot of younger guitarists were starting to play this percussive kind of way. And I didn't become famous for it. And one particular year, I was at this trade show, which is called NAM. It's the National Association of Musical Merchants. And every year, NAM has a big show, and every business that sells anything related to music will go there and say, hey, these are our new guitars for 2021. Here's our new line of trombones. Here's our music books, anything related to the music industry. So it's a huge, huge convention. And we always go, musicians go, and certain companies have that you play. If you endorse a company, they'll do some playing. And there was always a big concert at NAM. And this year, one of the featured acts was Kaki King. I don't know if you know Kaki King, but Kaki is about maybe 30 years younger than I. And she had begun to make a lot of noise and get a lot of attention for her unique kind of playing style, which is very unique, and I love it. And she learned a lot from some other players as well. But she was young, and she was that kind of person at the time, playing in the subways, and attracted a really powerful manager who said, let me work for you, and on and on and on. And this moment, she was the featured act in this concert at NAM. And I was in the audience, and I was hating her. And I was really, really angry and frustrated and jealous and just so annoyed. And this tension is building up in me, and I'm just getting angrier and angrier. And the concert is over, and we go back to our hotel room, and I think to myself, what am I going to do? Because I have all this feeling in me, and I have to get it out somehow. So I pick up my guitar, Spanky, I call her, and I start tuning. And the way that tunings work for me sometimes, many times, is that I feeling something, and I try to get the tuning to match, to resonate with me. So I start tuning, and I'm working my way. No, that's not quite me. Nope, not yet. No. And I think it's going to be a really ugly tuning because I'm feeling so ugly. I'm thinking it's just going to be like a gnarly, dark sounding chord. And I finally get to this. And I think to myself, that's not dark. That doesn't have the feeling of darkness. That feels actually like possibilities, like, wow, interesting. What's coming? And I'm like, wow, just a little bit joyful even. And so I start to find something. I'm still feeling dark and angry. And the first thing I find, because a tuning or a chord is, let's say it's a pretty sound or it's a major sound and it feels uplifting, it doesn't mean that you can't play a minor chord on it or a gnarly dark sounding chord, right? So I found this little riff. Let's see if I can even play it without my nails. Can't really play it well. And I thought, okay, that's getting close, And that's how the song started. The song, particularly this one, took about a year to finish. It had many parts to it. But in the end, I had to say it was really inspired by khaki and being so angry and jealous. And in the end, it was this song that won me the Superstar Award. And I thought, well, at least I was able to take this really dark, angry bunch of feelings and find a way through the instrument and through the tuning to share what it was that was so essential and exciting to me about music. So that's the story behind this song. I am handicapped because I don't have my little, I was using, we call it ultraviolet gel, UV gel nails. And right. For the past 15 years or so, I've been using those, going to the salon every 6 weeks. And I have to say, I really grew to like this. And it gave me a strength in picking that I no longer have. So I play it. If I can get through the whole thing, I will. If not, I just play you a little bit of Atomic Reshuffle.
You're not the first guest who also couldn't get nails because...
I tell you, it's really a hardship when you're used to it because it gives you a strength and a sound. And I have all the ingredients in my drawer over here. And the 2 times I tried, it was a disaster. So we'll see.
We're going to love it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a whole nother story with nails, but
It was brilliant. Oh, fantastic. Well, hearing the story behind it is brilliant as well. So I can relate to it so much. And I'm sure actually that every single musician and artist can relate to it, because even if they're the most popular number one in the world, you don't stay that.
true.
The next person comes along and then, you lose it.
It's true. It's true. Anybody have some questions?
Oh, comments coming in there. That was brilliant. Any questions from anybody? I've got tons more, but anybody else has any?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Go
Okay.
ahead.
Okay, so I have a question because for the life of me, and I have been playing for a little while anyway, I can't do bar chords. I hate it.
Me
You
too.
know, because I know that bar chords open up a whole new world for you with the guitar. And it's so frustrating. So I would like to know what recommendations you might have for that.
How are you going about trying?
Well, with my fingers, like this, I understand that this part of your finger, you press it against the chord, and it's like rolling your finger almost.
Mm-hmm.
So trying to press it on there and trying to then play the chord. It's not easy. I don't know why.
Well, bar chords are very hard, period.
Yeah.
They suck. I hate bar chords too. Partially why I hate them is because I had an accident with a knife that went right across this part of my finger, which is exactly where you put the pressure for a bar chord. However, I still have done extensive research trying to figure out how to get better at them. And I don't have a super wonderful answer. I've learned that how you position your finger can help.
Okay.
And if you change the angle, you know, uh, changing sometimes, if you're able to support it with another finger, that helps. But there are sometimes the fact that the string is sitting right in the crease of your finger. So, can you move it this way a little bit? It's a matter of strength, it's a matter of rolling, it's a matter of finding a different position. And lastly, I will tell you this. There's a teacher who I really love her work. Her name is Jamie Andreas. And Jamie Andreas is a when I found her work, it changed my approach to practicing. And the whole basis of her work is that she thinks that if we could become aware of our body and the tension that we hold, the extra tension, not the tension we need, because we need some tension to play chords and do things, but if we could learn to find and notice the extra tension, the raising the shoulders, the tightening of the belly, the stopping of the breath, the small little ways that we extra tense, if we could notice and learn to relax our bodies and parts of ourselves and learn correct ways to position and hold the instrument in our hands, that we can pretty much play anything. Okay. And she talks a lot about practicing things with no tempo, changing chords, moving. She had an exercise yesterday I was looking at just to get you to curve your fingers. You know, she's like, just do this and then bring that here and see, you know, and she's just minute little exercises. She talks about lifting your arm, how to lift it with the least amount of tension. Think about it. We hold our arm up all the time to play. What if we're holding unnecessary tension in this arm? How long is it going to be before all of a sudden our hand doesn't move so well? It's just a matter of time. So Jamie Andreas's work is brilliant for this, and she has a very in-depth layer upon layer website. And one of those, and many courses and many little tutorials. She probably has some kind of subscription service, but I know she did a particular little tutorial on bar chords. And I haven't yet, but I would look at it. I would find it and buy it, because I bet that Jamie's approach is going to be a little bit different than most other teachers. I bet she's going to look at some of the ways we can build our awareness of tension that we might be able to shift or let go of, that might give us a little advantage in approaching these bar chords. That's the best I can tell you. And Daniel, I'd love it if you have any other suggestions about how to go about making those easier or more accessible.
That was a great answer. I totally agree. That sounds really interesting. I'm definitely going to check out
Jamie's stuff is great.
Jamie
It's
and
revolutionary.
as well.
Thank you, by the way. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Great question.
Good
Great
luck.
question, Donna.
Yeah.
I've done an exercise sometimes where you just hold the strings and you just let go of the strings and your arm just flops straight down.
Yes.
You've done that
Yes.
one. It's
Heavy
brilliant.
arm.
Really good.
Yes. Yes.
We're kind of out of time, but I put some more links in there. A link to Vicky's Bandcamp. I saw you have a Bandcamp. That's
Yep.
great. Bandcamp's
Yep.
really good.
Yep, and I also have a Thursday show that
yes.
you could all tune into every single Thursday from the past 53 weeks. We've been doing a live stream from my front porch, and I started it to be uplifting during the pandemic when things were so hard, and I started to share some inspirational stories every week. And halfway through the show, I bring in a musical guest, and they're all different kinds of musicians. And my wife has even worked out a way that we can play together. So I play live together with my guest. And anyway, it's a great fun. And Thursdays 12 to 1. I'm on Facebook and YouTube with that.
And it's 12 to 1 Eastern time.
Eastern time. So it's 5 to 6 for you.
5 p.m. Thursdays.
Yeah.
You'll have a few more people from here.
Yeah. We'd love to see you there. And if there are anybody wants to contact me, you can always get a hold of me through Facebook or Instagram or my website. And happy to answer more questions or anything.
Brilliant. That was absolutely just a real treat, and really learned loads, and it was super inspiring. Definitely just going to go make music now. I'm going to try that. Just tune.
Yeah. Look, I love to hear from people if they've tried some tunings or things like that. So if you try something different because of what we've talked about today, I would love to know about it. So
last question, if somebody goes to your Bandcamp link there and there's lots of things, what would you recommend they check out first?
Well, in Bandcamp you can sample everything you want.
Check it all out.
Just sample something, see what you like. I have an album out with Sally Barker. I don't know if any of you know Sally Barker. She's from England, and she's just been a touring mate and friend of mine for years. That's a beautiful record. It's called In the Shadow of a Small Mountain.
Great.
But any of the things on there will be combinations of me playing guitar, do a lot of singing, so you'll hear a lot of singing songs too.
Brilliant. So guys,
Thanks,
click those
Daniel.
links, because when the Zoom session ends, you won't have access to those. So click them and open up in your browser and check out more of Vicky's music and her website as well. I'll put that in as well, so you can find out about the front porch sessions and everything else. So brilliant. Thank you, Vicky.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, everybody. My pleasure to be with you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
You bet. Have fun.